Hello, and welcome to The Game Changer, a series hosted by Kitman Labs, where we cover everything from sporting teams and sports science to cutting-edge technology.
I'm John Dams, a performance scientist for Kitman Labs, and welcome to the Game Changer podcast. I'm delighted to welcome Hitoshi Ipponsugi, Head of Performance for Japanese Top League team Toyota Verblitz. Ippon has worked in professional rugby for just under 10 years. He studied sports and exercise science and sports coaching from the University of Canberra in Australia, and whilst there worked as a strength and conditioning coach for the Super Rugby team, the ACT Brumbies. After finishing work there, he moved back to Japan and worked with franchises such as the Kubota Spears and the Mitsubishi Dynaboards before settling with Toyota Verblitz in March. Now, welcome Ippon. Maybe to get things started, can you give me a bit of insight in terms of company rugby in Japan? It's very unique in its nature.
Yeah, I think I can almost say that the company can decide about training setup. So what I mean is this: they can decide how much time are available for players to train with us. So basically, they can give us time blocks that we can train with the boys. So our first job at the club should be making sure the training time we have with players is enough to achieve the target. And if the balance is not right, and then we have to negotiate and convince the companies to increase the training time. So therefore, the understanding the Japanese business model style in general is beneficial, and especially for coaches who are coming from overseas, I think.
Okay, so there are some restrictions potentially around the time you could spend with your athletes, and you have to be very efficient with that time and show the benefit of that time to your company.
So this is the things that I think as a performance manager, the things we have to discuss with the bosses from company.
Okay, and how do those decisions influence your decisions in terms of what you're doing with the athletes at the moment? So you've got maybe a bit of a window in the morning or afternoon or a short window. How do they influence the type of work you do with your players?
It's obviously that the time block depends on the time block. We have to think about the training programs. So that some companies give us only AM training time or maybe PM training time. And so I'm lucky enough to have a full day, full week, almost full week training. So I can learn the professional organizational structure.
Okay. Some teams may not have that benefit, so efficiency seems key there.
I think so.
Okay, so you've been involved in rugby in Australia. You spent some time at the Brumbies. And you've obviously been involved in Japanese rugby for a period. What do you see as the key differences between some of the Southern Hemisphere Australian rugby and Japanese rugby? Maybe give me some key points there in terms of some of the differences.
Yep. I think these days the training approach getting quite close to the overseas setups. Yeah, but I think the things we do not have and you guys have is academy system. So I think this is very important for players' physical development point of view and then educational point of view as athlete. So in Japan, basically the players play for high school and university and then company club. So obviously each high school and each university has a unique training approach. But in general, the strength conditioning area is not yet structured well, like academy system overseas. So therefore, the players' training age in general, especially in S&C area, is usually not high, and so that makes the training approach different to the overseas team in Japan, I think.
So you're getting your athletes a little later in terms of their development. So what type of interventions do you use on those players who first come into your environment to ensure they're up to speed in terms of demands of the game?
Yeah, I think having said that, the university graduate players, their training experience is really varied. So some university provide a good training setup and some are not. So we have to assess the players anyway, and then discuss the players and what they did, how they did, how much they did, and what they can do. But based on those informations, we may have to decide for some players to just give them a basic program only.
Okay, so it seems like it's a case by case. So depending where they've come from, what they've done, you make the decision in terms of their preparation leading into either a season or an upcoming kind of set of fixtures.
Yep.
Okay. Now that's kind of about Japanese players. Now, the Japanese league has a number of foreign players and coaches coming into the system. How do you approach coaching these overseas players who are used to different environments, and then they're coming into a Japanese environment, which is unique in terms of its approach, the way you train, and in terms of the company expectations? How do you approach coaching and preparing athletes from, say, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, England? What do you do differently?
I think for foreigners, at the first as a coach, I think nationality, just the nationality, it can be a good indicator that how much training knowledge and the skills they have, and also what sort of training program is beneficial for them. For example, Islanders is different to the New Zealander, sometimes Australian, and also the players who play for the European comp and usually say that they need to adjust their running style or maybe fitness or maybe body composition to the Japanese rugby setup. So I think we need to again have a good discussion with those players to make our training sort of direction in Japan.
Okay, great. Again, it seems that context and where they've come from, what they're doing, plays a big part in terms of what you do and how you prepare your athletes.
I think so, and then we have to again those experienced players give us a good knowledge and skills individually. So listening to them and then make a decision.
Okay, now 2019 is a pretty exciting time for Japanese rugby with the World Cup arriving there next year. How is Japanese rugby preparing for the upcoming tournament? I know there's a few changes happening to the top league next year. Can you elaborate on what's happening around that?
Yes, firstly, I'm working for Toyota, so at the moment, so I'm not a position to talk about the Japanese Rugby Union. But I think we are changing top league format next year for the Rugby World Cup, and which means we have more chance to play other boys and the younger boys who don't play top league usually. So this is a good chance for the next year. Will be a good chance for young players to come up. In that sense, I think Rugby World Cup is good for even the local club side.
Great, so good for rugby in general in terms of using it as a window for development for some of your younger players. It sounds great. Let's maybe switch from the focus from Japanese rugby to yourself in terms of your own philosophies around physical preparation. Now, in terms of, I guess, learning in your off season, you've travelled a considerable amount in your off season. Can you tell me a bit about where you've been, what you've done, who you spent time with over the past couple of years?
Yeah, past couple of years, I visited England and Ireland and France and obviously the Australia as well. Those are Premiership teams and Super Rugby and French top 14 teams, and it's the Leinster that I visit. But I think we have to keep running in that way and stay in Japan. It's good, but I think to open up in my mind to going overseas and then learning from specialists is helped me to develop myself.
That's great to hear. I mean, I travelled a lot when I was a coach, performance manager, and I really enjoyed the insights from other teams and other countries and other environments. In saying that, so what insights have you taken from Leinster, the likes of the Super Rugby teams you visited in Australia? What have you taken from those teams, and how have you applied it to your environment there in Toyota?
I think every year I try to have a target to ask first. But before that, I think we have to have a good relationship with the with the coaches that I'm going to visit, and at least they should feel, or I would like them to feel happy having me. So for that sense, try not to ask what to do or how you do too much. I rather ask what is the fundamental reason for taking the method or philosophy that are applied to the team. So if I can understand the philosophy or reason that are taking, reasons that are there, why they're taking, then those fundamental knowledge or maybe philosophy, I can adjust and apply to the current team. So for that sense, even sometimes training players monitoring, and sometimes organizational management, and sometimes staff development. And each coach has the very special skill and knowledge, and some of them are the wisdom. Having them into me just for the personal development would be good. But I think those philosophies,
understanding the philosophies with driving each program, and then learning to put your own spin on those and see how they work for you in your environment with your team.
Yeah, thank you very much, John.
and more of an aside, where was your favorite place to visit? Where was the favorite place to go spend time with? Who did you enjoy the most?
It's a very hard question, John. It's a very hard question. Sometimes it's not just because I want to go, and sometimes because sometimes I follow the coaches. So if the coaches move, I go there, that country. And then sometimes just simply there's one reason to go to visit that city, and then I try to find the place that I can go. So it's a many way that I decide to go to the club. But I think person to person relationship is the first things. So there's not such a as a best place or best city to visit in that sense. Are you okay? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that was. Yeah. I used to really enjoy going to America to hear the different philosophies in terms of the way they approach physical preparation. It was very unique compared to Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and probably Japan. Their philosophies were slightly different, and I really enjoyed going and listening to the different perspectives they have on strength training, speed training, movement, and how they integrate that into their technical preparation. So, Ippon, you've been a player and have been involved in rugby for a good amount of time in Japanese rugby. How have you taken your experience as a player and coach into your management as a performance manager? What are the things that you're integrating into your practice?
Yep, I played two company teams in Japan and two local teams in Australia and two local teams in New Zealand and one in Ireland, and also coached 3 teams in Japan and the 4 teams in Australia, age grade to the Super Rugby team. I think what helps me as a coach is from those experience is a general understanding of rugby program and the training adjustment that we have to make based on the environment. So when I was in Australia, at AIS, I met a skill acquisition coach, and then I asked the question what differentiate international and national player, and he said me that adaptation is straight away. So from that point, I think having that experience, it helps me to adjust my program based on the team's need. I think also that those general understanding helps me to explain the training reason or exercise to the players. So hopefully players make sense why they do it when they do a training. And also the understanding coach's need is also important aspect as a physical performance manager. So rugby is not just a strength and speed or size or power as a sort of single marker. We have to train for them, but I think we have to find a picture in players that we can develop their performance by doing training.
Okay, so understanding the context of why you are doing a certain element of training and being able to articulate that to your athlete group. Do you think that's a prerequisite in most sports in terms of understanding how you have the link between, I guess, the physical preparation and the on-field preparation? Do you think that's a vital part of becoming a performance manager or a high performing strength coach?
I think the understanding of the sports that definitely helps. But I think as a physical performance coach, and the marker that we have to target, the key performance indicator that we have to follow, as long as that is clear, and then we can towards that help athlete to become better.
So you've been part of the Kitman Labs family for a wee while. Can you talk to me about the need that kind of drove you towards using Kitman as your data provider? What was missing that drove you there?
Yeah, I think before the Kitman, so players monitoring tool is based on the manpower. So we have to spend time on collecting the data and typing, and then fix it and manage it, and then find out the data that's meaningful to us. But it's quite time-consuming work. And then in Japan, we do not have much strength conditioning coach on site. So having a Kitman cut down that time, and then let us focus on the jobs that we have to do as a strength conditioning coach, or maybe physical performance coach or manager, and then while we are getting a meaningful data from the Kitman. So time is the best part for the Kitman.
Yeah, I hear that. So the time's not spent in front of a computer, the time is spent coaching. You're this a coach and fostering those relationships with your players.
Yep.
So tell me what does your average day look like around using the platform, using Kitman? What does your average day look like in terms of your interaction with the players?
Yeah, and start from the morning. I put up the RP request to the players early in the morning, based on the schedule, and I just wait for the boys to come and they type in. And so boys, I set up at least 45 minutes before the training start. I ask the players to put in those monitoring data, wellness scores and body weights and hydration, those stuff. So we check just before training, and then I bring the data to us, bring up the data, and then make a decision on the real time just before training. And then after that, we put the GPS data in, and we collect the RP request they send from their mobile phone, and then we using the Kitman's the reporting format and just a print out and then send out to the rugby coaches. That's pretty much it, I think.
Okay, it sounds like through the conversation we've had today, Ippon, you deal with case-by-case issues, case-by-case in terms of the athletes you can bring into your talent funnel from university, and a case-by-case from the foreign athletes you bring from New Zealand, Australia, South Africa. So understanding those individual case files, how is the analysis, how does that help you then plan your players' future performance? How are we using all that individual information to plan your players' future performance? What are you doing?
I think the firstly, we have to make players play. So from that point of view, is injury prevention wise, data management is really, really important, and I think to help the players to stay on the field as long as possible. So at that point, also the load management and the distance control is part of it, and in that sense, we hopefully can maximize players' ability to play long and then play better.
Okay, so keeping players on the field, keeping them playing, keeping them involved in the game, trying to minimize those blocks of training or blocks of time where they're away from the game.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's the first thing that we have to do it for players. And the other reason is to give them just a objective target to each individuals and compare to maybe the stronger counterpart, so that we can target those numbers for them to reach. And,
okay, so to give them a guide, to give them an understanding of what they're training towards, and also the standards in which maybe some of the best players are achieving.
Yeah. But, and also, those data analysis can be a good feedback of the program, what works and what not working. And as a team.
Yeah, I understand that. So it's telling you if your program is working. So if your strength plan is working, if your loading parameters are working, it's informing what you do. So you can always look to kind of sharpen the sword, so to speak.
Yeah. So from that, if we can provide the better program every single year, then players should have better program to follow. So we can sort of excel their playing career in the future.
Okay. So I might put you on the spot here then. Is there anything that you're currently doing now that may have been changed through the analysis and the data you've collected? So something you may have been doing either a few months ago, a few weeks ago, which has been changed by the analysis that you've done. Can you give me any examples?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so obviously the starting a Kitman is different to give us a good information. So for example, the first game we play against Suntory, and we had lots of sort of not lots, it's the cramp at the end. So based on that fact, and we set up the Kitman page to find out the possible reason to prevent the Kitman in terms of training wise, approach wise.
Now, you've also, in your time as a coach, written about development of rugby union in Japan, particularly around the physical development of your Japanese players, and also to improve their ability as rugby players, improving their understanding of the game and their decision making. Starting with the first point, is this something you've tried to adapt into your own programs recently in terms of the physicality of Japanese players and their ability to compete with some of the tier 1 nations in international rugby?
Yeah, I think physical development of the Japanese rugby player, like 10 years ago, they just simply having a lack of sort of strength and size compared to the tier 1 nations. So the last 10 years, we try to develop, obviously recruitment as well, but I try to develop the strength and size, and then try to cover the volume that they can try in the rugby. So for the physical development side of it, now Japanese rugby players are getting close to the tier 1 nations. The meaning of having a San Wolves, the San Wolves is going to the Super Rugby, and then they're not winning much, but I think they're getting a better. They are doing a better performance every single year. So I think in Japan, Japanese rugby as a whole, we are heading to the good direction.
Now, to finish up, you've been collecting a lot of data with Toyota. How do you think the analysis of a player's physical performance, how do you think it's going to impact players in the future? How do you think analysis is going to inform what we do with our players in the future?
I think those objective data helps them understand what they need to work on. It's quite simple. I think you need to be faster, or you need to be fitter, or you need to be leaner. In that sense, I think we can build up the standards that they build up the standard of the players.
So using objective data to inform your decisions in terms of the conversations you have with players and coaches.
Yeah, I think so. So those monitoring point of view, I think the data is very important. The boys, we try to go to see them and then talk to the boys in the morning or before training if something wrong on the data. But we would like to have boys to come up and to talk to me and talk to us what's wrong and what's not going good. For that sense, I think they're making decisions every day. So I think we would like to educate the players in that sense to come to see us.
Okay, so using the data to educate the players in terms of turning them into rather than rely on you, they can make their own decisions around how they're feeling, their physical preparation. That sounds great. Great approach. We're almost at the end there, Ippon, so I'd like to thank you for your time. I know, you know, getting across your ideas in English, you've done such a good job, so I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. Thank you.